Welcome to the Women in Vinyl podcast with Jen DiEugenio, founder of Women in Vinyl, and contributor Robin Raymond. This podcast facilitates conversations with those working in the vinyl record industry to educate, demystify, and diversify the vinyl community.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Women in Vinyl podcast. We're taking Vinyl 101 to 101.2.
Like a radio station, but a podcast.
I mean, we had such a great response on things you wanted to know, so we decided to pick up where we left off. Last episode, we took a deep dive into the anatomy of a record, materials, and the controversial topics of color versus black vinyl and 140 gram versus 180 gram.
I'm just going to go ahead and say ish again. 140-ish to 180-ish. Because, come on, people. Are you weighing your food like you're weighing your records? Because I feel like you're not successful in both of those categories.
101.2-ish.
Yeah, ish. Welcome back. We had so many questions that we didn't get to because we had so much information to give you on the first one. So decided to do another one because it's our podcast, not yours.
So, I mean, I think one of the big things that we were asked about was picture discs.
Oh, baby.
So maybe that is a good place to start. How about a little history of the picture disc?
Picture discs.
Well, I mean, do you want to start? After all, we have a Canadian.
It's true. Canadians are so inventive and known for our ingenuity. So the Canadian Berliner Gramophone Company around 1900 had his master's voice, which is the RCA dog, for those of you playing along at home with the cocked ear to the gramophone. You know, it's the trick that everybody tries to get their dogs to do. I mean, I can't train my dog to do it ever. What about a cat? Do you think you could get your cat to do it, Jen?
I don't think so. Not on command, for sure.
Oh, I mean, cats don't do anything on command.
Exactly.
So that was lightly etched into the surface of the playing area, kind of as the OG anti-piracy measure, which kind of made them a picture disc. And it was kind of the, like, do you have an authentic Canadian Berliner Gramophone Company record, or is this a non-authorized bootleg version before bootlegs? And then so that kind of made them like the first picture discs. I mean, I guess that would kind of tie into kind of an etched situation like we talked about last time. What happened in the Depression?
Yeah, and then in 1946, World War II, the Great Depression, the picture disc reemerged with Vogue Records. And they're sort of more like we know them today, but their core discs were made from aluminum instead of shellac. And Robin talked about shellac on the last episode as well. And these typically had illustrated Art Deco, illustrations, pinup art, cartoons, like humorous things like you would think of news and media back in that time as well. And in comparison, the audio quality of these was actually excellent. So it's kind of funny to think how things have sort of ebbed and flowed in this way.
I mean, I didn't even know about these ones, and now I want to get them all of them. I'm obsessed with Art Deco. So.
I found some pictures of them, and they're really cool.
Oh, amazing. So they were handicapped by the lack of any like big hit names, top tier talent, wanting to do those kind of things. So, and being outside of their contracts. So Mercury Records was one of the main people, the main entities that weren't into doing picture discs.
And
yeah,
They retailed for, get this, $1.05.
That was 50% more than a 78.
Save up your dollars. So yeah, it just, again, speaks to the times. It's crazy. Yeah.
Yeah, and Vogue went out of business in 1947 because they had less than 100 catalog items. So they were just like, womp womp, we're done. Thanks, everybody. Good night.
And then the Record Guild of America, they were putting out children's picture discs in the late 1940s through 1950s. And so there may be some listeners who would remember, or parents may remember, the 50s time frame when these were around. And so they were typically 7 inches. I feel like people may be a little more aware of these.
Yeah, they seemed kind of like Flexies too, because they were like 7-inch diameter, and they had they didn't have like a core disc in the middle, so there was nothing to like make it like more substantial.
Right.
So I mean, that's kind of in Flexi territory a little bit, which we'll talk about. Trust me.
And then the new generation of picture discs, as we know them, appear more in the 1970s and had lesser sound quality.
Do you think Gene Simmons was like, I need to make this thing?
Yeah.
He was like, I mean, that guy trademarked everything. So he's probably like, how do I put my face on a record? Okay.
Oh,
let's figure it out. I mean, it was the 70s, right? Like, that's when everything started to go kind of downhill in vinyl anyway. So they're like, hey, they already sound like garbage. Let's just put pictures inside of them and then nobody will care anyway.
Yeah. And I mean, some of the first modern rock ones were MC5 and The Doors. A lot of interviews. I have like a Motorhead interview on picture disc, an Ozzy one.
I have a hilarious 9 Inch Nails picture disc. It's got Trent Reznor in like a blonde angel wing. He's like looks really cherubic, and then on the other side he's super emo with like his black stringy hair. It's amazing. It's a UK one. It's a UK import one too. It's hysterical.
And like someone online said, you know, what's the point of them besides decorations? So that was Ladytron 666, and I think you know, for some of those interview ones, I mean, yeah, you might listen to them once or twice, but you're probably not going to throw them on the turntable frequently.
Yeah, they're kind of a novelty. I mean, there's some that are really awesome. And the way that I do picture discs in Lathe World is actually like kind of like an Oreo cookie situation. I mean, but not an Oreo, because this is not a sponsored podcast. So I've got like a fully clear record that I cut the groove into on one side, and then a fully clear record, like 2 separate records, and then I put some sort of image in between them, and then I laminate them together. So my picture just sound wicked. So I mean,
yeah, and I mean,
sorry,
we're
back to apologizing in Canada.
And in some ways, that's not terribly different from how we press them, but yeah. I mean, I think the combination of all the parts for pressing is what, you know, degrades some of that quality, because you're taking the puck and you're putting big labels, depending on the size, on top of that puck. And then you're actually taking a piece of like laminate, it's like a plastic laminate film, and you're putting those layers on top, and then you're putting them all in the press. So they are one at a time, like your hand press records.
Yeah.
And that's essentially how, you know, you're just pressing all those together to make the picture disc. So pressing into plastic isn't, you know,
not ideal.
Yeah.
Pressing plastic into paper into plastic.
Right. And so like it rarely happens, but most people use a black core, but you can change the core color. So like if you wanted the inside to be clear or something, I mean, you would see that like when you look in the hole of the record, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, how many more ways can we make them sound terrible? Let's use some splatter in there.
Oof.
I can just hear the crickets in the listenership right now, and they're just like, "Ooh, that's a terrible idea. Oh gosh. Oh no, don't do it." I mean, there's lots of different kinds of picture discs too. There's photo ones, there's art ones, there's zoetropic ones.
Which are really cool.
The zoetropic ones are totally cool.
For those that don't know, those are the ones where It looks like a pattern on each side. And when you put it on the turntable, you still may not notice anything really happening, but you can get certain apps or certain lighting on the actual image. And when it spins, it creates like an animation.
Yeah.
So
you look at
really
one
cool.
spot and it like changes. It's kind of like a little flip book.
Right, exactly.
On your turntable, which is totally awesome. I don't know if anybody actually remember the of all time Robin Hood. But there's like a rooster that plays a lute and he does the whistle, and I'm not going to do the whistle because that would be annoying in a podcast. But he like struts around and he plays the lute and he whistles this highly addictive earworm song. And one of my friends from Paper Street Cuts who likes to do slip mat, he made one. It's like all the way around the outside of a record. So I'm just like waiting to figure out something that I can cut and make my own zoetrope out of.
Yes.
I kind of just want to bootleg the whistle song because I think that would be hilarious.
Yeah.
Don't at me, Walt. Don't come after me. We had some other questions about picture discs. Do picture discs sound bad? I mean, we've kind of covered that one. Yes and no. I guess depends on where you get them from. And do picture discs have a lower quality sound compared to regular ones? I mean, again.
Yeah, I mean,
depends.
you know, one of the questions was,
on
is it better fidelity with black and least with picture disc? I would say that's probably safe as a very broad assumption. Yeah. But,
Totally.
you know, again, check out the 101 episode and we kind of talk about all the variations there.
Yeah, absolutely. Jen, do you want to talk about shaped vinyl?
Yeah, so shaped vinyl or die-cut vinyls, like some of you may have in your collection one of the heart-shaped records. Those have been pretty popular as a die-cut. I can't think of the name. It's like a funk and soul song on one of them that's really super popular. A lot of people have that one. But essentially, it depends, the die cut, it depends on how much audio is on your record, and it's pressed onto a regular size and then the shape is cut out. So you can be fairly creative with those. And you can also do die cut picture discs. And a little bit more goes into that, and the fact that you have to consider the length of your tracks. You also have to consider the shape of the quote unquote label or picture inside as well. I worked on a project for an artist, and she is sitting, and she was wearing these super high heels, and the way that they wanted it cut out, it was like we just couldn't. The paper kept ripping when they went to do the actual cutout, so we had to choose a different path, essentially, for it to be cut out. So things like that sort of have to be taken into account when you're making these.
Yeah, there was some, I think Motorhead did one too, didn't they? And I can't remember which.
Yeah, they did the
Ace of Spades.
Spade.
Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that one was cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going to guess, but I'm going to guess that there's like a Prince one that's the symbol too.
Oh, there's got to be.
Ew.
Mars
I don't know if
Volta
there is,
did the planchette,
Yes,
which is like awesome.
Yep, that's true.
Yep.
Which is totally awesome. I heard a rumor that they were back in the studio this year too. So
Nice.
that would be kind of cool to get the Voltas back making some stuff.
Yeah.
Let's talk about flexies. I love flexies so much. I mean, I don't know that a lot of people are making flexies now. I think there's a few organizations out there that are doing that. They were super common in the 60s. There are still some labels and bands that are doing it more so as like a promotional item rather than like an everyday kind of thing. Usually they're really lo-fi, and you definitely need to adjust your tone arm and anti-skate for those of you that have those adjustments on your turntable. And you definitely need like something kind of like either a record or a cork slip mat or something underneath to give them a little bit more under there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if anybody buys Decibel, I'm pretty sure they still do them. They put them in
I think
Decibel
Decibel
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, they're also known as a phono sheet, a sono sheet, or a sound sheet. Those are all trademarked. And it's a regular record, quote unquote, made of thin, flexible vinyl with a molded spiral stylus groove designed to be playable on a phonograph turntable, like any regular turntable. Originated as the Evitone sound sheet in 1962, which Evitone was actually like believed to be one of the last manufacturers of flexi discs, and they stopped in 2000. There was like Pirates Press kind of took over in 2010, and Third Man.
They're typically like 7-inch size. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, generally. One problem that people had with the thinner vinyl was obviously stylus weight for the playback system, combined with the low mass of the actual flexi disc would make the disc stop spinning because the stylus would actually like pin it to the turntable. So that's why you want to make some adjustments there for sure.
You've talked about doing the video where you're weighing the tone arm already, so I think that would be a cool thing too. We could share that for sure.
Yeah, and I have some flexi, so I could show you the difference between a flexi and a 140-ish or a 180-ish.
Yeah,
as well, and how you make some fine adjustments there.
So how about some fun flexi facts?
I mean, try and say that 3 times fast. I was like, why did I write that? That's terrible. So every year between 1963 and 1969, the Beatles actually made a Christmas recording on a flexi, and it went out to their fan club. And that's actually how So This Is Christmas went out the first time, which was
those
cool.
Have got to be
worth
pricey.
Some bank. Yeah, no kidding. And then National Geographic got into the flexi game, and in 1965 they included a sound sheet of the funeral of Sir Winston Churchill narrated by David Brinkley, and it actually had recordings of the sounds in the funeral procession and a hymn sung and an excerpt of the sermon, some of his speeches and stuff. Like, I'm like, how big was this flexi? It must have been gigantic.
Well, and then they did the songs of humpback whales. So I kind of feel like National Geographic needs to get back in this game.
Yeah. And with that order in 1979, they actually did 10 million, like 10.5 million of them. And then in 2012, Third Man actually released 1,000 flexi discs tied to blue helium balloons in Nashville. And they think that only 100 of them have been found.
Probably not the best thing for the environment, but cool idea.
Okay. Let's hang plastic from other plastic and release it into the air. But Jackley was known for hiding things in because he's an upholsterer, right? And he actually hid stuff in chairs and sofas and ottomans and stuff that he actually reupholstered too. So there are some early demos out there. If you live in Detroit, cut your couch open and look for whatever is contained in it. You never know. I'm completely obsessed with records from the Soviet Union and everything before the fall of the Iron Curtain, the wall and the Iron Curtain. So flexi discs were mass produced in the Soviet Union from 1964 to 1991. They were inserts in the Krogozor magazine for teens. And
fun fact, Robin can speak Russian.
Yeah, I mean a little bit. It's conversational, but they were always blue, and I have some of these from Moscow, and they're incredible. We will have photos of them, and maybe if I can have the presence of mind, I will make a video of playing one of those for all of us, because that would be cool. The government actually launched an audio magazine for kids, which was the Cola Book, which was all flexi discs for kids too. And then because of a shortage of vinyl material, and this is where the podcast gets so exciting, let me tell you, during the Soviet era, this is when bootlegs started on X-rays. And this is why I got my lathe, everyone. Get excited.
Yeah, I mean, Bone Records,
oh man.
It's such a cool idea.
Yes. I mean, we're trying to do it right now. I am trying to do it. But because all of the x-rays have gone to digital, because all the hospitals started to recycle them because of the silver in them. Mm-hmm. So it's they're so expensive. It's impossible to get x-rays to just cut up, and people are like, oh, privacy. And I'm like, oh, it's fine. I'll cut your name off of it. Don't worry about it. It's fine. Let's talk about x-ray records, because we're both geeked. Oh, man.
Yeah, I have a more recent one of Black Sabbath, of course.
Of course.
And so that one I found on eBay.
Yeah. Was it $1 million?
It wasn't too bad, actually.
Amazing.
It was pricey, but it was, I mean, it's worth it.
Yeah.
So
I have a hand. It's a 1979 like Ukrainian bootleg. Like the bootleg of a bootleg, because they were just like trying to be cool and do Bones Records.
Right.
But it's David Bowie, Man Who Sold the World, which is
nice.
Pretty rad. It's my one and only. But I'm trying to get some more. These are obviously bootlegs on X-rays. They were made between the 50s and the 60s, and they were kind of like a black market way of making music available to people that the government in Russia had been like, nope, you're not allowed. So Stanislav Filo actually had a Telefunken lathe from 1946 that he stole from Germany and went into Poland, into Warsaw. And so then he's like set up a little shop, a little lathe shop where people could go in during the day and like record little messages to people. At nighttime, he would bootleg songs for people for $1, which is totally amazing. And they used real medical X-rays that people would like steal from Russian hospitals. And they cut them into 7-inch discs, and the center hole was made by burning it with a cigarette. Because Russia.
I mean, yeah. People want their music. I mean, that's a testament to it for sure.
It's true. They were all done at 78 because that was kind of the speed of the day. And then they started to figure out how to make new lathes so that they could make this underground bootleg label.
Well, and that's probably a good way for people to tell, too, if you have an original or not, is what it plays at. Mine's 45, for example, Absolutely. So I know that it's a newer one.
Yeah, and mine is 33, so yeah, exactly. I mean, and exactly, like, just like picture disc, I mean, if you think that your picture disc sounds bad, play an X-ray, and then and then play your picture disc, and you'll feel worlds better. They are not for musical enjoyment. They were definitely for just like giving a middle finger to Stalin and being like, hey, I want to listen to the Beatles. Here we go. So
right. And a lot of these things that we're talking about today are in that realm. They're not things that are like audiophile quality by any means.
And I mean, this is why I do what I do. So how about that?
We'll definitely make sure to share some of those pictures. They're really cool.
Yes, absolutely. And if you are as geeked about X-ray records as I am, you can check out the X-ray audio project. Throw that into the old Google machine and all kinds of things will come. Watch the TED Talk as well and learn lots and lots of things. There's like a book, there's a coffee table book, there's a movie, there's all kinds of things. I mean, wow. And now why don't we talk about another novelty, which is filled records.
Do you have any of these?
No, I don't.
I don't know that I do either.
I've made one. I guess I shouldn't say that I don't have one because I've made a couple just to like see if I could do it.
Did you do? So I guess before I ask that question, so how they're made is that you cut your A side and you cut your B side. You fill with said liquid of whatever variety, alien slime, fake blood, maybe real blood for someone who knows. Other beer, I think Flaming Lips did. And then you seal the two together, and that is how you make liquid-filled records. So did you seal the one you made?
Well, so I haven't done like a liquid one yet. I've tried to do other mediums. So I've been working with sand and coffee and artificial flowers. Hocus Pocus in California, she's another lathe cutter. She does real dried flowers in between records too. So there's like a bunch of different things that you can stuff inside records as well. One of the worst things about filled records is that sometimes the seal will degrade and the liquid will evaporate. So I've read a lot of feedback on the John Carpenter filled record, and like all the blood has evaporated, and that's like stage blood. So a lot of people are keeping their like John Carpenter records in the freezer.
Oh.
So that the seal, they're like, you know, if the seal goes above, and I'm going to speak American here, 70 Fahrenheit, then the seal starts to like have some trouble.
Yeah,
the guys at Romanus are doing like really incredible liquid filled records, and it seems like those ones are battle tested, and you know, they do LEDs and all kinds of bananas things. So
yeah, I mean, I think, you know, keeping a blood filled record in your freezer is probably pretty horror, so I think it's on theme.
Like a stage prop hand or something by it.
Right.
Filled records were like first attempted by Disney in 1970. I want to try and figure out what that was because I want to see it.
Yes.
I want to know what it was filled with. And then one of their rarest filled records is actually done by the Flaming Lips, which has, it was only 10 copies. It sold for $2,500. And each record contained actual blood from the artists that worked with the Flaming Lips on it, like Erykah Badu, Kesha, and Chris Martin.
I mean, I have had someone ask if they could put their blood in a record. They were like, I mean, a pint or two will work, right?
Oh, wow.
I was like, there's
impressive.
a lot of things that...
You only have 4, man.
So that was a hard no.
Yeah.
Not with me, anyway.
There was a craze where people were pressing ashes into some records too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grave Face Records, I believe, in Savannah did something with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know that counts as like a filled record. I guess that's kind of like a mixed press.
You can also have that done, I think, right? Like you can be cremated and be pressed into vinyl. So for some of the diehards out there. So to clarify how these are made, so for example, we were working with a client who asked us to press just a one-sided A and then a one-sided B. And then, you know, to go back to our sandwich cookie analogy, the A side is one piece of your cookie and the B side is the other. And then whatever you want to put in the middle is your stuffing.
And juicy peanut butter filling.
Right. And I guess like in the instance of a filled record, it would be like dipped in chocolate or something. So that it's like sealed.
Yeah. I mean, and that's like, I think one of the sneaky things about filled records is that sometimes they're substantially thicker. So, I mean, they look like a regular record, but they might be, you know, like a centimeter or 2 or maybe a half an inch thick because you've got so many pieces getting put together. And obviously you need space for the liquid smoosh around. So sometimes those are going to take up, it's going to be a pretty like big record. So, you know, maybe your automatic record player will not like that very much based on how much clearance you have on your playback. So yeah, those are things to keep in mind.
So we've talked about all of these records that don't have the most wonderful audiophile qualities or properties. And a lot of the other questions we got were about QC or quality control.
Oh, the best part.
Yeah.
Everybody loves this part.
You have a little experience in that, yeah?
I do. Like a tiny bit. A toe in the old QC pool. Before we leave Filled Records, I just want to say that we have some incredible artists out there that are making some incredible records. Romanus Records, Wax Mage, incredible things being cranked out. So, just want to holler at my homies.
Yeah.
But yeah, QC, this is like back to the colored versus black, hotly contested throwdown on the internet. I feel like QC is the one thing. And when we say QC, we mean quality control, or also known as quality assurance. So quality control or quality assurance, I feel like just like front doors, everybody's got an opinion on what makes something sound good. So some of our Instagram homies, JJ Deb Vinyl says, was there quality control during pressing? Will it be warped, scuffed, hole-centered, quiet? Question marks abounding.
I mean, I live with a quality control manager, and I can say, yes, is the simple fact. How plants do that varies. You know, where I work, we check them several times, and you know, they're checked on press, they're checked when they come off press, they're checked while they're while they're listening to them, they check them when they sleeve them. So there are certain things that are being looked for, you know, pressing flaws like stitching or non-fill, that's
a whole nother episode too. We could talk about record flaws for days, friends.
Exactly. And so I mean, those are things that happen based on the heat and cooling cycles of your record press. Flash, which is the part that gets cut off your record. Sometimes it doesn't cut completely clean, and so
sometimes you get pin flash too.
Yep, exactly. In the center, there can be scuffs. There could be watermarks that happen based on the way the metal was cleaned and made. So, I mean, long story short, yes, they should be QC'd, and double labels and things like that shouldn't leave your pressing facility, but things happen.
Yeah, I mean, and just because something passes at one part of the chain doesn't mean that it's going to pass at the next part of the chain. And there's always, you know, some give and take-ish at each of those stations as well. So that's part of it. High Violet 09 says, why is warping so bad these days? I mean, that's going to depend on what plant it's coming from, how long it's in some sort of heated environment, if it's in a truck for a really long time,
right.
If it's waiting to be sleeved in a warm environment.
And if it's not, if there's not cooling plates. So some pressing plants will sleeve on press. So like the record will come out of the press and kind of fall into a dust sleeve.
Which is crazy.
Others will fall onto on a spindle. And then every few records on the spindle will have a plate. And then they sit and cool for a period of time, 24 hours or so, and then are sleeved. If temperature changes happen, if they don't cool all the way, and I think something, you know, with everybody sort of rushing right now because there's such high demand, you know, if the warping is coming from a plant, it's probably to get it out the door. But I mean, it's hard to say because a lot of plants, you know, everybody wants to put out a good record. So it could just be that it's not packed well, you know?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. A lot of things go into, you know, how it's being actually like put in a sleeve in a jacket and then put in a box, and then how many boxes are stacked on top of other boxes.
Did your mailman throw it at the door?
Yeah. Does your postie hate records? Because that would be a thing. Crate Digger says, why isn't the quality the same anymore? If you're referencing the 60s or the 80s or the 90s, you're going to have a different scenario. I mean, different mastering, different materials, all kinds of different things. So
when I get asked that kind of question too, I sort of equate it to where we are now with vinyl is similar to me as fast fashion. So I feel like that's sort of where we're at. Like the people want, you know, on trend clothes. They want them fast. They want them cheap. They want them, you know, now. I think that's sort of where vinyl is right now. It's like people are at home. They want their record. They want it fast. They want it pretty, you know, and I think that rush and demand that the industry is feeling, you know, it's your quality is going to suffer some if you want it cheap, fast, and, you know, now. Yeah. It's true. It's just the way it is.
J.S. Lange says, could you theoretically use recycled materials to press, and how would that affect sound? I mean, Jen, can you speak about regrind and virgin PVC? Can you touch on that again?
Yeah, so the recycled PVC is typically records that got rejected during the QC process. So it isn't necessarily like used or bad vinyl. It just was kicked out for whatever reason.
Didn't pass. Back of the bunch.
Right. And you can't, and you don't want to mix PVC, like leaded PVC with non-leaded PVC, for example. So it's not like people are getting records from Goodwill or something, giving them to a pressing plant, grinding them up and using that. Like, it's not how it's working. So, you know, I think I said in the last episode too, people sometimes use this as sort of an eco-friendly way to produce records. It's usually a little more cost-effective if you're doing colors or something, because it might just be a random mix of regrind colors. So sometimes plants have specials for that.
And then there are some plants that are doing like recycled plastic and, trying to move that into the spaces too. And other manufacturing streams that are trying to get into more sustainable ways of making records. Sometimes it does affect sound quality. Sometimes not so much. So, I mean, we all would like to be a little bit more sustainable, I think. X Little says, is there any kind of range of quality on raw vinyl material? Does it impact sound? Jen, I think you're going to have to answer that one because that seems more like a pressy situation.
Yeah, I mean, I think like virgin vinyl, it's going to just, it's in the form that it comes in. So, I mean, I think it's going to sound nice. I think the average consumer, to be honest, is probably not going to notice a difference. Most of the vinyl that we use is virgin vinyl. So, yeah.
Yeah. Is it flat, squared edge, spindle hole, too small? Easy question. I was like, what? Yeah, I mean, spindle holes, I've seen a range of spindle hole sizes. I mean, I have a tool that I use on my own record blanks to make them more expansive and welcoming to other spindle sizes, one by one. So I can do that. But I know that sometimes, yeah, they are a little bit snug. Jen,
Mm-hmm.
what do you guys do? Because
Yeah.
I mean, the pin is like kind of a regular size, right? Like it's
Yeah, I
930 seconds.
Right. Like, yeah, I mean, we have a certain spindle hole size for the machine. So I think it probably is in relation to that. I do have a couple records that do have smaller spindle holes. And I'm not sure why they're as tight as they are. I don't know if maybe it was a certain kind of press or a material thing. But for the most part, there are certain ones, sort of like when we talked about RIAA and things like that. There's, it needs to fit on your turntable. So there's specific sizes.
I mean, and there's, different turntables that actually have different spindle sizes, like the little teeny tiny 3-inch record player obviously has a really teeny tiny spindle. 45.
Right. Not for all records.
Yeah. Not for all. That's weird. RCA old style players have a 45 hole spindle, which is like 1.5 inches. So,
and when those are made, at least now, they're still pressed small hole, and then there's a larger hole punch that gets it to the larger 45 hole. So you can use your adapters.
Let's see, Canadian pressings are usually
at Carl Tide. This one is for you, Robin. Canadian pressings are actually sometimes better than U.S. ones. True or not?
I mean, I will challenge you to show me how you know where they're made, because generally that's not really advertised anywhere. So, yeah, and sometimes American labels get Canadian plants to do their stuff. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know, Carl. I don't know about that one. I feel like manufacturing is kind of manufacturing, and it's about the people that are making records. So I don't know. Maybe people will care more at another location than others. That's where I'm going to leave that one. Rob Anderson says UK versus US pressings. US has deeper grooves and are less prone to wear. I'm going to say that is just that's not a thing.
Yeah, the deeper grooves thing isn't a thing.
I love you, Rob. I do. I don't know who you are, but that's not a thing. Groove depth has everything to do with the cut. So that goes back to whether it's a lacquer or a DMM.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with some labels that will have a European pressing and a US pressing. I've had where people will do an overseas or European plant, and they will do DMM on that one. And then for US, they'll do a lacquer.
Yeah.
Because, fun fact, the Scientologists have taken all of the DMM machines in the US, so that's why they don't exist here. But we prefer lacquer anyway, or at least I do.
We should have a total episode on Scientology records. What do you think?
Yeah. We should definitely talk about that more.
I wonder if I wonder if there's a Tom Cruise picture disc of like Tom Cruise talking about Scientology.
It's in some vault wherever they're keeping the DMM machine.
I mean, that's spoiler alert. That's actually the middle of the Medal of Freedom that he got. Not only, but it's actually a record. Let's see. How many, what is that? The power of source.
Oh my God.
What is that?
Is that one of them?
Is that a Scientology record? Oh, hey everybody. This is our producer, Mitch. Black Circle Radio, Black Circle Studio.
Hello.
Omniscience. And get on this podcast.
That one I had to. The fact that you brought up DMM in this, amazing, and the whole Scientology thing, that is the power of source, the Apollo stars. That's L. Ron Hubbard behind the mixing console.
No way.
And that record was recorded on the Scientology yacht. And it is what that record sounds like.
Is the yacht different than the Sea Org? Because I feel like the yacht sounds way funner to be on.
Yeah, but that record sounds like the Devil's High School pep band.
Oh wow!
It's blistering. It's an insane. It's an insane record. But bringing that up, there it is. There's your DMM master off the Scientology yacht. My goodness.
And we're gonna have a mastering specific episode where we talk about mastering, whether it's lacquer and what DMM actually means and the benefits / drawbacks of each and or both.
Yes.
So stay tuned. Jen Spelson said, how many vinyl pressers are there in the world? I've heard there are only a few. If you're talking about plants, I mean, there's a ton. There's a ton of plants now.
There's a lot more than people realize because there are operations that have, a couple presses. And then there are ones that have lots of machines.
Like 25. Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot of actual presses out there. If you're talking about like cutters, there's not as many mastering engineers. So again, that is a bottleneck for everybody that is wondering where their records are. The ability to actually cut records is limited by how many people are able to do that. Let's see. Cranky Bacon says, all about the golden age of classical vinyl. Well, that sounds like it's going to be an episode as well.
Yep.
And then, why are new records seemingly getting more expensive? Well, Nigel, I'm going to say inflation to begin with, right off the hop. Jen?
Yeah, I mean,
insight?
I think, some of it is probably built-in collectability that tends to happen with some of the variants and just marketing. Longer lead times are probably going to mean pressings might be more exclusive because you might get something that comes out now and then it can't be repressed until next year. So that could, sort of increase the price as well for that, desire and need to have. I think a lot with social media too has like really blown that up. People see something, they want it. I mean, I love Sleep, but like how many times are we going to re-release the Clarity? I saw the new one come out for Third Man and I was like, I think I already have like 4 versions of this. Like
at least 2. That's my answer. At least 2.
I mean, it's crazy. But that built-in collectability, I mean, everybody's buying it. So that's true. Why they're more expensive. So
I mean, and you've got those records that are getting repressed and remastered and, the tapes are going to Abbey Road and you're doing a half-speed master and you got box sets and yada, yada. I mean, maybe that artist has sold their catalog, so now that actual license is a lot more as well.
Yep.
I mean, there's so many different hoops to jump through in order to get to the purchasing stage that
exactly.
It's hard to equate it from 1985 to when the Dire Straits record was on tape to the digital remaster where it sounds like a completely different record, but it's Dire
Right. Well, unlike talking about remastering, after we did our first Vinyl 101 episode, I went to try for our Patreons to find the same record on 180 gram and 140 gram to compare the difference to show that there wasn't a sound quality difference. And almost every record I had that was released on both versions of 140 and 180, all the 180s had been remastered. So that's immediately going to make it have a different sound. So that sort of brought me to think, well, maybe that's why people think that 180 grams sounds so much better, is because most of the ones that they have may be remastered.
Absolutely. So, I mean, nebulous question. Great question, though, Nigel. We appreciate that. Keep buying vinyl because we like to have our jobs. So we appreciate that. I think that about does it for our 101.2.
Yeah.
On the golden waves of Black Circle Radio / Black Circle Studio. We would really like to thank you for tuning in to episode 4 of the Women in Vinyl podcast. We want to say a big smoochy thank you to Mitch behind the knobs.
The Wizard of Oz.
The Wizard of Oz. Everything behind the curtain. It keeps us on task, which is an incredible thing. And sometimes we'll swoop in with his vast knowledge and bitch and record collection. I'm not going to judge you for having a Scientology record. I feel like I need to celebrate you for that. And I want it. And we want to thank Peluso Microphones for coating our golden throats and cascading down your little ear holes. Thanks to Red Spade for being rad, because I'm rad. And yay. Thanks to Archival for our intro and outro music. We love ya. Jordan, you're a sweet baby angel. And we also want to say a big smoochy thank you to the Pale Lips. Jamie from Pale Lips, we love you, and we love your song that is getting re-released on CD on Rumbar Records, and it's called You're a Doll. So thanks for letting us use that one.
Also want to give a quick shout out to Groove Washer. We have some really awesome custom Women in Vinyl cleaning kits. Be sure to go to the website womeninvinyl.com. The store is open, so you can grab one for yourself.
Hit up that Patreon, everyone. Jen's done some really incredible work there. You can get a t-shirt. You can get some pins and buttons. You can see what a jackass I am in our recordings. Hear me sing you a little song that you didn't want, but you're going to get anyway.
And all of that money for Patreon goes to a good cause in making Women in Vinyl an official nonprofit.
Not for profit, so that we can have a broader perspective.
Yes,
let's smash the patriarchy together.
Yeah.
Help us fund that and get some sweet swag while you're doing that. As always, hit us up at media@womeninvinyl.com. Rate, subscribe. I mean, definitely rate so we know how we're doing. Hit us up with questions. And as always, take it away, Hank.
This episode has been brought to you by Women in Vinyl, Red Spade Records, and produced by Black Circle Studios. Thank you for listening. Please remember to subscribe, and you can always contact us directly by visiting www.womeninvinyl.com.